My name is Joe Farkas, and I'm the architect of this ship. And I'd like to tell you a story. This ship, the design of this ship, as well as all the ships that I have done for Carnival Cruise Lines, has a story. And that story begins with an idea. It's what I call a central idea. And that idea is some people like to call it a theme. I don't. It is a point where I begin all the designs. It's an intellectual idea for me to build artistic creations around that all of the public rooms on board of the ship follow, so that to me there is a coherence in the design that varies in how that's interpreted from room to room. The process begins by making the drawings that flesh out the central idea. These are all architectural drawings done to scale that show the floor plans, the ceiling plans, the main elevations and details, some of which we do on computer, but again, the initial drawings are all done by hand. Basically, everything that you see on this ship today is laid out by us and specified by us so that every note is carried out in some particular material or detail around the ship. We then turn all this documentation over to the shipyard, who in turn turns it over to the subcontractors who make each individual public room. And during this whole course of roughly about 2 years, we are in constant touch with the shipyard, going to the subcontractor, seeing mock-ups, watching it under construction. So it is a total hands-on job until the ship is finished and we're all sitting on board like we are now. When I came up with the central idea for the Carnival Freedom, I thought of doing decades through the centuries. The idea was one where I could reinterpret design styles from those various decades and create a very interesting and fun atmosphere. The name of the atrium is the Millennium, this current millennium, but I wanted to be a little bit of a futurist in making this design. So what I did was to use very rounded forms which are accented by a special iridescent paint. We also used a new kind of wood, and it looks a bit like tiger skin. This is all accented by shiny pieces of copper and special lighting. When it came time to design the main theater aboard the Freedom, I thought that the 1880s would be a good decade to derive the design from, the Victorian age. So you'll see a lot of ornate details from that period, gold printing and ancient classical details that are reproduced as murals all over the ceiling and the walls. But then it's also updated by using these curlicue motifs. The aft lounge on this ship, which is our secondary theater, is called the International Lounge. The name really recalls the 1920s, the Bauhaus, the Mies van der Rohe. The Bauhaus was a modern design center created in Germany in the 1920s to make a reaction to the previous ornate designs of the past, and that is where the less is more idea of design came about. So you'll see very muted rich wood paneling accented with stainless steel moldings, very minimalistic design with some beautiful marble decorative tiles. Now we come to the two main restaurants, the Posh and the Chic. I always thought that in the 1990s food took on a new importance, so I thought that this decade would be good to represent the restaurants on board. I've created these cast bronze grill works that show basically orange branches of trees with leaves and the oranges on them. I also was thinking of new and different materials, so you'll see python skin reproduced and dyed orange on the walls, beautiful inlaid wood and pearl panels to create a very interesting mix. The Sun King, the supper club on board the Carnival Freedom, represents fine food and food that's a step above. And this brought me to the 1700s and Louis XIV in France. This room features murals depicting Louis XIV, a statue of Louis XIV at the entrance, as well as carved and inlaid marble work all around the room. We have a really huge crystal chandelier to give the feeling of the ballroom at Versailles, which was Louis's place. The casual restaurant is the Freedom Restaurant, and to me, one of the greatest icons of freedom is the Statue of Liberty. So you'll see the Statue of Liberty in the center of the back wall of the atrium dome, and I thought that this would fit into the 1980s and the postmodern movement, and I created a design where we have pediments around the room set on columns that are twisted and accented by colorful tile work, and also brushed copper panels to recreate the crown on Liberty. The decade is the 1000 BCs. The place is Babylon for the casino. And the King Nebuchadnezzar built this fabulous palace, the Hanging Gardens of Babylon. What I tried to do here was to recreate the walls of Babylon, the Ishtar Gate, which was done in a blue brick embellished by golden mythological animals. To create the Hanging Gardens effect, we've painted flower designs on polished stainless steel hanging above the beams, so they sort of float around. The sports bar is called the Players' Bar, and I chose the 1950s, the heyday of great sports teams. So you'll see throughout the room photographs of famous sports teams. And I cheated a little bit on the design motif. I thought it would be interesting to have these lava lights when you feel like you're in some 50s bar that has been redecorated a little bit in the 60s. When it came time to design the dance club, I thought of discos in the 70s. So the 70s is the name of the club, and when I think of the early discos, I think of mirror balls. We use regular small mirror balls throughout, as well as giant ones on the ceiling. The name of the piano bar on this ship is Scott's, for Scott Joplin, and the period of time when he was the most creative and the most famous is the 1910s. So I thought of an old New Orleans bar or Basin Street bar using stamped copper tiles and red wooden benches. In those type of bars, they used to have these spinet or upright pianos. So we actually had the pianos made. They're almost full size, and they have a working keyboard and hammer system. And as the music is being played by the piano player, you will see the keys moving on each piano. When it came time to design the jazz club on the Carnival Freedom, I thought of the 1930s, where nightclubs were in their heyday. I used rich wood paneling throughout on the walls and created appliques of bas-relief designs of formally dressed couples in dance poses throughout. But the main thing of the room are the curtains. We've created swags going across the room, and they're all internally lit to create various moods, to create a sophisticated look. For the cigar bar on Freedom, Havana seemed a natural. What decade to represent this? Well, in the days when Havana was known as one of the great spots to go to, the 1940s. So we have louvered doors, ironworks, and coral rock columns. And to enhance it all, giant cigars form the bases of the tables and the bar stools. In addition, there is a great mural of the harbor of Havana. At the aft part of the promenade, we have the wine bar, which has Art Nouveau details from the 1890s that are carried out in organic vine forms that have been cut out of mirror and sculptural forms covered with this beautiful iridescent glass mosaic tile. What we have on board, it's an experience. It's something meant for you to have fun and enjoy and relax and all of those things that you've come on board the ship for. And we spare really no expense in making that happen. Almost nothing that you see on board is off-the-shelf material, so to speak. Everything follows the specifications that I mentioned, but they're all custom-made pieces. It's not a museum, but in a way it's like going to a museum because there is so much to see. And it will really enhance your cruise, I think, by making this a discovery process. My hope is that the environment itself will engender this type of exploration and discovery process. Further, I hope by the end of the cruise, you haven't really seen everything yet, and you'll want to come back again.